This video is going to show you how to set Maya to an existing project, how to create image planes, where to place your images for the image planes, and then the start modeling of a character. So the first thing we're going to do is launch Maya. Never double click on a file through your File Explorer and have Maya launch on behalf of the file. Instead, always launch Maya first. This way you can go to File, go down to Set Project for an existing project that you've already created, which we did in the prior video. The window will then open up and ask you where your project is located. So for me, my project is located over here. I'm going to double click to my D drive, double click to my Game 202 folder, and here's where the Simon project is. Sometimes students simply just click on Simon and choose Set, and that would be not enough for Maya to capture the actual location. I always recommend that you double click on the folder so therefore you can see all of the subfolders listed there. This way you'll notice up here in the top section, it actually is acknowledged that we're setting it to the Simon folder, not just to Game 202. There is no need and not recommended that you click on any one of these subfolders located at the bottom here. Once you've double clicked and you see all the 10 folders listed there, simply press the Set button. Now what will happen is Maya, when you go to File, Open Scene, it should automatically default to your Scenes folder of the project that you currently set, which I chose to be Simon. If it doesn't default to the Scenes folder, I highly recommend that you cancel what you're doing and attempt to reset your project. Here's a shortcut button in the lower left corner. You can reattempt to set it to Simon and ensure that you've double clicked on Simon, so therefore all 10 of those subfolders do appear, so that way when you get to opening up an actual file, it should default you automatically to the Scenes folder. At no point should you come over to the left-hand side where it says folder bookmarks, etc. For you to navigate or locate your file. It should automatically be located in the Scenes folder of the project in which you are working in. Choose Open. So here's the cube that we started with on the prior project. Now, before we continue on, I'm actually going to open my File Explorer, and I've got two pictures that I'm going to use for my image planes. So I'm going to select both of these pictures, and I've very handily placed them inside of a folder easily accessible to me. But now I'm going to cut these from this location. So I'm going to go to Edit and choose Cut. And then I'm going to double click on Simon, double click on Source Images. Always put images into the Source Images folder, not into the Images folder. And the reason why Images is used for when you render out your scenes or your movies. In this case, this is a source image that's used to create the scene or the movie. So we're going to double click on Source Images and then simply right click and paste these two files inside of here. Do not paste them inside the 3D Ping Textures folder either. That is useful for other aspects of Maya. So simply pasting them directly into the Source Images folder is ideal. And that is all we need to do. I'm going to minimize this folder. The next thing we're going to do is set up image planes so we can model out our character against these two images. So in order to create an image plane, we're going to flip ourselves over to the 4-view panel. In the 4-view panel, if you recall, the upper right is your perspective, allowing you to Alt left mouse button to tumble, whereas the other 3 views are orthographic views, allowing you to only move left and right, or dolly, or zoom. No tumbling is permitted, and you can see if you attempt to Alt left mouse button, it'll say the orthographic views cannot be tumbled. It's important that when you are creating image planes that you actually are in an orthographic view, so the image plane is based off of the view that you are currently looking at. So for example, on the lower left side, we're looking at the front view, okay? So I'm going to spacebar over the front view to make it nice and big. You can see in the bottom of the screen we're looking at the front view. We're going to go to the View menu and go down to Image Plane and choose Import Image. It then will load up the Source Images folder for us to access our image from very shortly. There we go. Okay, so automatically by default it opened up our Source Images folder, and if you simply click once on the pictures, your preview on the right hand side should appear. Otherwise, you can see I've named them Model Sketch Front and Model Sketch Side. And because, again, I'm working in the front view, I want to make sure I choose the front picture and choose Open. and there's our front image plane. Press the space bar, and I'm going to space bar over the side view and do the same thing for the side view. View, image plane, import image. Slight pause until the window opens up, and once again you'll see the model sketch side is our second image that we're going to be using, and choose the open. Space bar to snap out of this. Now if you're looking in the, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Go back to perspective. If you're looking in the perspective view, you can see you've got two images that are kind of on top of each other, which will make our cube very difficult to access in the middle of all of this business down here. So we're going to move these image planes back in the negative direction of the respective views. So how we're going to do that, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see this. I'm going to swipe over the edge. Now clicking in the middle of an image plane, right where I'm at, will not select the image plane, whereas if you swipe over the edge of the image plane, you can then access that image plane. Now the one that I've selected, the big one, is going to be the front view. You can see the green outline is appearing in the front view. So the front view is always going to be the Z direction. So I'm going to come over to my channel box on the right side, and if your channel box is not open, the upper right corner is your icon to open up the channel box. We're going to go to the image center Z and set this to -12. Negative because we want to push it away from us, not more in front of the camera. Similarly, we're going to swipe over the edge of the side view, and again you can do this in the perspective view or you can do this in the side view. You simply need to swipe over the edge of it. Don't click just in the middle of the image plane. And because it's a side view, we're going to set our image center X to -12. And now our two image planes have been pushed back substantially, kind of out of our way, and it allows us to get access to our cube that's in the center. If you didn't notice, possibly review the video, when we move these two image planes back in the respective Z and X directions, you should have seen no movement in either the front orthographic view or the side orthographic view, because we moved them in the depth of those two planes, so there was no shifting left or right. They simply moved backwards, and so the placement of the -12 that I've arbitrarily chosen is rather irrelevant. It puts it approximately at the edge of the grid, but again, you could set these to -6, you could set them to -26. It really makes no difference. -12 works great, in my opinion. It puts it at the edge of the view, as well as it gives us plenty of space for our cube that we're going to be working with to model out. And you can see the span of his arm length, and it won't interfere with the image plane on the side view, and vice versa for the depth. Okay, so that being said, if you would like to move both of these image planes up to ground level, because you can kind of see the center of them is in the belly button in comparison to this black line, you again can select both of these image planes, or select each one on its own. And I am not really certain what the actual height is that we need to set this to, so I'm going to give a couple runs on this one and see where we're at. This to 10 is too high, so maybe 7. 7 puts us right where we pretty much want to be with his feet at ground level. So you can modify the image center on each of the planes for Y to 7, and it puts his feet kind of at the baseline of the origin of our stage area. All right, so I've already created this cube, and if you haven't created a cube yet, create yourself a polygonal cube. And because we've not morphed or reshaped this object, you can also see that I've created one subdivision going down the center of this cube. Let me space bar and you can see a little closer. And the way to access the subdivisions is to click on Polycube 1. And here you'll see I've modified the subdivision's width to 2. Now the reason why I just did the width is because eventually we're going to have to create 2 legs out of this cube. Kind of difficult to envision at this point, but trust me on this one. And once again, we don't want to create subdivisions in all 3 directions, X, Y, and Z, because that seems to be fairly excessive to what we need. And realistically, we don't want a line going through his arm at this time, because eventually this cube is going to get nice and tall, and we don't want to split up his arm in that direction. So I can easily modify these back to where they were at, because I've not yet morphed my object into something else. All right, splitting myself up into orthographic views again. I'm going to press the number 5 key to show the textures. Okay, and I'm going to use my move tool, which is the W key, to basically place this cube right around his belly button. And again, because I'm moving it on the y-axis, you're going to see it also moving on the x-axis or the side view at the same time. So whichever arrow you've chosen, you could even choose the up arrow, the y arrow, and the perspective view, and you'll see it moving in the orthographic views as well. The only view that you don't see it moving in the y direction is the top view, because we've moved it up in the y direction, which is not visible when you are in the top view. So I'm going to scale out this cube, and I'm going to do so by using my scale tool, which is the shortcut to the arc key. And as I'm doing it in my front view, okay, so this looks pretty good. I'm not going to really shift it to the left or to the right, because the line that we have in the middle of this cube is spot on with the center of the character's stomach area right here, okay? Likewise, I'm going to take that same scale tool, the arc key, and I'm going to scale out his belly a little bit, okay? And for this one, I can actually move it back a little bit. I'm not going off center with it. I can adjust and align, and it does not pay at this time to be super specific in terms of its exact placement, because we can always make minor adjustments much later in our modeling. Right now we're trying to get a rough in for the overall shape. So we started by creating the size that we have right here, and I'm also going to increase the height of my cube by using the scale tool just to drag it up a little bit. Okay, so now the cube is rather large. With that, I'm going to start off doing what's called an extrude. Now, an extrude allows us to create more faces based off of the existing faces that are there. So what that means, to get to the extrude tool, and again, I'm going to leave my orthographic view open because it gives me a really great bird's eye view from all directions, even though I may be accessing the faces in the perspective window, simply because it's easiest for me to tumble around in this particular view. So with that, I'm going to right click and hold on top of my selected cube. Now the reason why I right click and hold on top of it is because I will get the subset of tools that are available here, of which I would like to release my right click on top of the word face. So when I click on face, it's going to select one of the faces. If I hold down my shift key and select the other face, it will select the face next to it. Please do not click and drag over faces. When you click and drag over faces, you select many more faces, because it allows you to select things behind it. So a click, shift, click is all you need to do to select just the two faces that we're using to extrude from. And a quick tumble lets you know that I've only got those two top faces selected. So with that, I'm going to go to my Edit Mesh menu. Now be certain at this time that this check mark is next to keep faces together. That must be there for this next step to continue to work. Okay, so by default it should be turned on. It's only a rare day when we turn that off, and we will do so when we initially create the legs of our character. So first thing we're going to do is click on the Extrude button. And with the Extrude button, let's take a moment to really focus on all the tools that have come available to us. If you look in the lower left corner, which is where my mouse is at, you can see I've got an arrow pulling us up on the y-axis, an arrow that allows us to move on the x-axis, not the z because we're looking in the front direction. I also have cubes available in those same two axes, y and x, that allow me to scale. And I also have a big blue circle going around the edges, okay? And that blue circle is going to present us the rotation tool. So right now, all I really need to do is drag this character's midsection up. And as I move it up, you're going to start to see more faces being created for you, okay? Now, I'm looking in the front specifically. So I don't want to come over to the left side and use my move, scale, and rotate tools, because the tools that I need are right here, and it makes it really easy for us to work with. If you can't access the tools because they're too big or too small, use your plus or your minus sign on your keyboard to make them bigger or smaller. As I use the Extrude tool, I'm also going to use my alternative tools to scale it in so I can start creating that rib cage area. I'm going to tab over to my side view, and I'm also going to use the scale tool in the side view. And this again creates me more of the rib cage lung going up into the neck and arm area. So I've scaled it in both directions while moving at the same time. Okay. At this point, my two faces are selected that I really do still need access to, because I'm going to continue to extrude up into the neck area. So if I go to there's no need to unclick or unselect or get rid of this tool. Just be aware that every time you extrude, new faces are created. So to continue up into the armpit area, I have to go to the Extrude Tool once again. I cannot simply just drag this up and down because you'll see it will start to adjust the things that I just placed into its current position. I'm going to press the Z key to undo my last movement, go to Edit Mesh, and click on Extrude again. This time, I'm going to drag this straight on up. Now, as much as I would love to scale this wider, I'm not going to. What I want to focus on is that this edge on the left and this edge on the right are completely vertical, because as you can see coming out to the two sides, his arms are completely flat. So if, for example, I were to change this topology into a side area, this face on the side and this face on the side are now going at an angle. So when I create my arms going out to the side using my Extrude Tool, my arm is literally going to go up into the upward 45-degree angle direction, which is not what I'm looking for. So I'm going to undo that scaling that I did, but I'm going to keep my extrude in place. However, I will allow myself to do some scaling in the side view because, again, his arm is much smaller going into his neck area. Once again, let's click on Extrude. Now, a shortcut to getting to the Extrude is this polygon shelf. It is this particular tool. It looks like a box that's slightly unfolded. So if you hover over it, you'll get the tool tip that says Extrude. Okay, so for this one, we're going to pull this up just a smidge. Okay, and as I move it up just a smidge, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm also going to scale in his neck area, and this basically is creating me that nice shoulder structure that we need. And if you go to shading and click on X-ray, you can kind of see through your character a little bit. And I'm trying to model as close as to the sketch that's behind the picture. Okay, so I've scaled it in on the X direction. I'm not certain that I need to do a whole lot of scaling on the Z direction here, but you can kind of see if I shift it back or forwards, I'm making some slight adjustments to it. So I'll move it back a little bit, and this will give me my neck area. I'm going to continue with those two faces that are selected to extrude it up. Let me zoom in so you can see what I've just done. So I've extruded it up, and again the X-rays turn on, which makes it rather difficult to see. You can always go to shading and turn off X-ray if that helps you. And scale it in just a little bit. You can kind of see I'm trying to end right where these two black lines are for the thickness of the neck. And likewise, I'm going to turn my shading on in my side view, so therefore I can ensure that I'm modeling this out as best as possible as I go up. So I'm going to scale it out and make it a little wider. Now I see that I've come a little short on the back side, and so his spine area there is a little lacking of some faces or some edges there. So I'm going to take this opportunity to stop extruding. So I've clicked off, so nothing is currently selected, and I'm going to tumble around to the back side of my character. And you'll see that as I hover over this character, I'm still in what's called component mode, selecting of the faces. However, if I right click and hold, I can then access another tool called the edge. And so now this allows me to select particular edges. And with that edge, I've clicked right between the spine, can tumble and use my move tool, and I can move this out a little bit. And so this will then give me nice little curvature starting to occur on the back side, where his arms are narrower, comes out into the back area and the spine area, and it starts to creating my curve there. Okay. The other choice, if you choose to not move it on edges nor faces, is to go into Vertex Mode. So again, I'm going to zoom in nice and close, and the perspective view is the best way to get access to these vertices, but I'm all the while looking down here in my side view or in my front orthographic views to ensure that my adjustments are not too outlandish. Okay, so you can see this is too much. So I'm going to bring it back in, and you can see now I've got a nice vertical line that's creating a curvature in the back of my character called Simon. At this point, I'm going to right click and hold on top of my character and release on top of object mode, and it takes me back to my green wireframe. Okay, so here we are, and this is my low resolution character, and I would like to make sure that what I've done so far is looking good. I've not accidentally extruded on top of each other. Things are looking great. So I'm going to press the 3 key. The 3 key then shows me what my potato sack kind of looks like. It's looking good, it's nice and smooth. I don't see a bunch of extraneous lines on top of lines, okay? So back to the number 1 key. Now I'm going to show you what an error would look like so that way you can know how to recognize it and then fix it. So I'm going to mistakenly select these 2 faces on the bottom of my character and go to Extrude. So Edit Mesh Extrude, or click on the icon, and I'm going to extrude, but you'll notice I'm not going to move anything away. I'm just going to click off because I was interrupted. I forgot what I was doing, I got interrupted, okay? And now I've come back, slight pause, dramatic pause, and I'm like, oh yeah, what was I doing? I was going to start to work on the bottom section of my character before I get into the legs. So I'm going to select these 2 faces, click, shift, click, go to the Edit Mesh Extrude once again, and this time I'm going to pull it down. All the while, it looks good to you, it looks good to me. I think I've done everything correctly. I'm going to scale it in to start to taper into the hip region of my character. Okay, I'm going to use the scale tool here to move this in, move it back, scale it in. And again, this little rough corner that's in the upper left corner right here can be fixed and adjusted a little bit later. Not the point of this exercise right now. So right now, I think this looks really good. And so again, I'm going to right click and go into object mode. Click on my object. I think I've done a great job. I'm going to press the 3 key, and you'll notice that my potato sack, isn't it interesting how, let me focus in on this, I have this extra line right here. Do you see this line? When I go between 1 and 3, there's 2 horizontal lines. 1, there's only 1 horizontal line. And if you don't really see it at the bottom, this is 1 horizontal line, 2 horizontal line, 3 horizontal line, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 horizontal lines. But when I press the number 3 key, don't forget this one down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this lets me know that I've mistakenly extruded but not moved my faces, and that's called edges on edges, or faces on faces. We don't want this to occur, okay? This will cause us problems when it comes time to animate because we have to create joints. Every single vertex has to be assigned to a particular joint, and now you're going to be sharing vertices on top of each other that are assigned to one joint, okay? Basically, the skin will crack when we go to have the character walk if this were to occur. And edges on edges is not an ideal solution. So to fix this, we're going to go back into our low res, which is the number 1 key. I'm going to flip over to my 4-way view, and either one of these orthographic views will work. And the reason why I'm not doing it in perspective view is because I don't want to accidentally select vertices that are behind my character if I'm not perfectly orthographic or linear. So I'm going to right click and hold and go into Vertex Mode, and I'm just going to swipe. So click, drag, and release over this set of vertices that are going through this area in which there are multiple edges on edges. And again, if you press the number 3 key, you'll see that there will be 2 rows of vertices selected, and if you go back to the number 1 key, it'll look like just 1 row. And I'm going to do a quick tumble just to make sure that for whatever reason I've not selected additional vertices that I don't want to merge with the current ones that I do have selected. And then I'm going to go to the Edit Mesh menu and click on the options box next to merge. In this particular window, the threshold is set very, very low. And again, if I press the apply button, I'm going to click outside, press the number 3 key, and you'll see that I no longer have that extra set of edges or vertices on top of each other. So because my threshold is set really low, this may not always work, but because those vertices were literally on top of each other, because we never moved that set of faces when we extruded, the low threshold will be perfectly fine. If you increase your threshold too high, what will happen is this vertice right here will pinch with this vertice right there if the threshold is set too high. And then you'll have like a beak coming out of your abdomen area. Simply press the close button, and I'm going to go back to number 1, low res. So that basically is how you setting your Maya project, so creating a cube, extruding it into the bodice area, and then setting up image planes. Hopefully this video was helpful for you.